Crimson Tide. For EA Sports College Football, I'm Chris Fowler here with Kirk Herbstreit. Let's get this thing underway. Ducks will kick this away to get us going here. Return here from inside the 15-yard line. He's brought down at the 28. That's where the drive will start. So Alabama's offense will get the first swing today. In this quarterback's career has been a mix of mistakes, but also stepping up in some big moments when needed.
Chris, this guy doesn't necessarily have the flashy skill set, but he's very consistent with what he does within this offensive structure. And the defense better be careful, because whether it's his legs or his arm, he can make you pay.
Looking for some space, it's Miller. And brought down at the line with that big defensive tackle.
Chris, that play just didn't have much of a chance at all from the snap. Quarterback hands this off and just nowhere to go. It's almost like the defense was anticipating the play call, and they put themselves in a position to come up with a nice tackle for a loss.
He picks up the first down, but gets drilled on the tackle.
Chris, I don't know, there's just something about that Bama uniform. When they run the football, it just feels right. It's a combination of having those big offensive linemen, a really physical approach at the line of scrimmage, and backs that are able to pick up first downs like that right there. Beautiful play.
They stop him, but this offense is threatening now at the plus 43.
One way to create a rhythm and really start to show your identity as an offense is to control the line of scrimmage. The offensive line here early getting a hat on a hat, and this back, as good as we've seen all year, with the ability to accelerate through the hole, positive yards, play after play here early in the game.
And they tackle him, but a nice pickup on that running play. Second down after that run on the previous play. The shotgun handoff here. Looks like Alabama will have the first down.
Well, the scouting report on this running back was that he is an elite ball carrier, and he is proving to be that here early in this game. These first few carries, not only the strength, but the quickness and acceleration to get upfield and get positive yards on display.
Breaks one tackle, gets brought down, but picks up some decent yardage.
Another positive run on 1st and 10. You know, it's early on in this drive, but this defense has not shown the ability to stop the run. If I'm the offensive coordinator, I just keep running the football until they prove they can stop it.
Second down after that run on the previous play. Hands off to the left. Run it up the middle, but stuffed for no gain. Alabama comes up with the line quickly. Back to throw. It's Simpson. Grant behind the line. It's Miller. Dropped for a loss after the catch on third down. Sets up a fourth down now. Looks like a player is down injured at that last play. We'll take a timeout while they check it out. So their first drive of the game, they're going to go for it on fourth down. Aggressive start. And the coach has made the call, needing to extend this drive. The offense is out there to go for it. Fourth down. He's throwing for it. Taking a deep shot here to the right. And it's intercepted right near the goal line. And that's a solid return after the interception.
Nice job by this defense jumping on that football to come up with the interception. And not exactly how this quarterback envisioned this game starting. His very first throw of the game, he puts into traffic, and he costs his team in a big way.
Running back with the football.
Hey, it's a great job of this defense containing the running game. But if I'm calling the plays, I'm not abandoning the running game just yet. I think it's important to have some sense of balance. So throwing and running is essential. Stick with it.
Dropping back. It's Moore. Looking deep to the right side. Got a man. Catch made. Big play. Potentially a touchdown-saving tackle, but not before a long completion.
This is really what separates a good running back from a great running back. Instead of just being a check down or the possibility involved in the screen game, this guy's actual wide receiver lined up in the backfield. That time you can see the versatility of what he brings to the table. He can come up with a big play.
Set for the second quarter here. Both offenses searching for a spark. They didn't do much in the first quarter at all. As we get lined up here for quarter number 2, we'll see if the offenses can get going. They didn't do much in the opening quarter. Offense getting set for a second down here to begin the quarter. They'll try the ground game here with the running back. Able to pick up just a couple of yards. That's good run defense.
Chris, I know it's not a huge gain. You didn't pick up the first down, but it's still early in this game. Never abort this running game. You keep working. It's kind of like a body blow in a boxing match. Keep wearing the defense down, and eventually you can hit a big one.
Quarterback in the shotgun here on third down. And they hit him just as he releases the ball. It's incomplete.
The quarterback did all he could here to wait until the last possible moment, but he waits just a hair too long, which allows the defense to actually hit him as he throws the ball.
It's fourth down and 4 to try to keep the drive going. Back to throw. It's Moore. Quick throw over the middle. And it's picked off. He throws it right into double coverage and pays for it.
Well, this isn't exactly how we envision this game getting started. You see an interception early, you're thinking, okay, great opportunity. Bang. They throw an interception right back. So everything is even. We can start all over, and the offense comes back out on the field.
And the ball is handed off out of the shotgun. And he goes nowhere. Stopped cold behind the line of scrimmage. Well, they don't block the defensive end, who shows some quickness, Kirk, getting around the edge that time.
Yeah, this guy's usually getting around the edge to put pressure on the quarterback, but he reminds everybody here that this guy's a complete package. Not only can he pressure...
Breaks into the clear. Brought down at the 33. That's good enough to move the sticks.
What a pitch and catch by the quarterback and receiver for a big gain for this offense.
It's a 1st and 10 play coming up for the offense. A new set of downs after that completion. On 1st and 10 here, looking to throw the ball. Lets it go quickly. Catch made down the left side, an explosive play. Take it down, but not before he makes the first down. They'll hand it off. The defense swarms him in the backfield. He had nowhere to run, loses 2 yards. And a quick timeout call by the offense after the play.
Not only does the defense stack him up at the point of attack, but he was instantly pushed backwards. The defense was prepared to defend the RPO.
Quarterback wants to throw it on second down. It's incomplete. He was hit as he threw that time. And now third down coming up.
Boy, that pass rush got in there in a hurry. Great job by this defense of disrupting the rhythm and timing between the quarterback and the receivers.
Not going to be easy here. Backed up a long way to go for a first down. Looking for a man deep down the left side. The pass is dropped. Incomplete. Would have had a huge gain. Took his eye off the ball.
What a hit there on third down. The timing was perfect, and now we got a big fourth down play.
The punt team making their way on the field. This is a low liner. This won't go a long way. And here's the return. The coverage team able to bring the returner to the ground. And the Oregon offense comes back out on the field. They had some good things going in the last drive, but it ended suddenly with the pick. Let's see what they can do here. So the first play of the drive here coming up. Less than 2 minutes left on the clock. And there's the handoff. Breaks loose at the 45. He stopped it at the 49, but that'll be a first down. And the Ducks come up to the line in a hurry-up. To throw, it's Moore. But they can't make the connection. Ball's incomplete. And the incompletion now makes it 2nd and 10 from the 49. And throwing again on 2nd and 10. Oh, down he goes. It's a sack. And now the defense will call a timeout. There's something they didn't like about that look. Now make an adjustment for this important play. So here comes 3rd and long. Giving up that sack has made this a real challenge for the offense. Looking deep downfield to the left. That one falls incomplete. They tried to press it deep, but now brings up 4th down.
Chris, I love this throw downfield. He takes a shot. I thought he had a big completion, but instead the defender makes one heck of a play to be able to knock that ball away for the incompletion.
The Ducks will line up to boot it away. That's the first punt of the afternoon for this offense. Not the way he wanted to kick it.
Boy, a great return, completely wiped away by fumbling the ball. Listen, special teams gets the same message all the other groups get when it comes to the football. Do not, under any circumstances, lose the ball.
So they'll start this drive here with less than a minute remaining on the first half clock. Out of the shotgun, he'll hand it off. And the senior able to make the stop after a short gain. They'll crank up the tempo here with the clock ticking down. 2nd down. Out of the shotgun, he hands it off. Not much on that play, brought down short. They get to the line in a hurry here for this 3rd down. To the air, it's Moore. Defense is coming after him. Incomplete. He was hit as he threw the football there on 3rd down.
Well, the defense picks the right time to get after this quarterback. 3rd down, critical down and distance. Do a good job of dialing things up and good coverage downfield. He didn't have anywhere to go with the ball.
The Ducks will come to the line on 4th down looking to convert. He escapes the pocket. He's got it. That is enough for a first down. And they've got him down at the 3. Big gain on that completion. And the offense will now quickly spend a timeout.
Just great execution here on this 4th down to keep this drive alive. And what I love is the accuracy from the quarterback and a good job by the receiver knowing where that route needed to be able to catch the ball and pick up the first down.
Tackled there by the defense. Offense stops the clock with their 2nd timeout to talk strategy.
You know, the real estate gets tight inside the 10-yard line. You love a play caller who has the ability to either run it or throw it. That puts so much pressure on that defensive coordinator to know how to line up. It's not just a one-dimensional attack he's dealing with.
Timeout is called to talk strategy. Time for just 1 or 2 plays here before halftime. So the offense takes the field in the final seconds of half. Chance for just a couple more plays. And to throw for it on 3rd and goal. On the move now. Oh, they've got him for a second. Great defensive play, and that should do it for the half. Minute's going to wrap up the first half here. Let's kick it now to Kevin Connors with our halftime update.
Gentlemen, what else is new? A spirited environment there in Tuscaloosa. And that defense has to feel like it just played about as close to a perfect first half as it can play. And who am I to argue? I mean, check out that scoreboard. Bone-crushing hits and an airtight secondary. Feels like they have 12, 13 dudes out there against that offense, which needs a real pick-me-up and fast. That said, let's get back to the field and our guys in the booth to start the second half.
All right, Kevin, thank you. We appreciate the breakdown. Alabama will kick it off to start the second half. Fielded in the end. It's Whittington. They tackle him at the 9. That's good coverage. He should have the ball in the end zone. And the Oregon offense is back out on the field. A scoreless stalemate in the first half. Let's see if they can get something going finally as we begin the third quarter. So the drive begins here, backed up at their own 9. First play of the third quarter is a handoff. Only a small gain. Now looking at 2nd and 9.
Chris, you know, the spread era over the years has always grown offensively, but what I've been always impressed with defenses that really build their defense to play in space still have an ability to be sound at the line of scrimmage and defend a running game. It's exactly what we saw right there.
Going absolutely nowhere. We have lost him.
That back just had nowhere to go. Got to give credit to the defense and their run fits on that play.
This crowd coming to life here, trying to help the defense get a stop with the offense pinned back. Running out of time in the pocket. And he's going to take a shot down the left side. And it's intercepted as he threw it into heavy traffic that time. Not much on the return, but that's an important takeaway. Sets up the offense at the 34. Alabama's offense coming back onto the field. Here's the handoff. He gains 9, so it's 2nd and 1.
What a great job to be able to establish some rhythm to an offense. When you can run the football like this, it just opens up the playbook. You can continue to run. You can go to play action. You really keep the defense on their heels when you can run the ball like this. Nice play.
First and 10 play coming up. And they're moving the receiver now before the snap. Trying to find some room. It's Miller. It's good for a 3-yard gain, so 2nd and 7.
Defense does a really nice job here of being able to contain that run game, held just at 2 yards. Chris, to me, this changes the playbook a little bit now for the offense. The guy calling the plays at 2nd and 8, that's a different deal. Now he's got to probably thinking about going through the air instead of staying on the ground.
After the incompletion, the lineup here for a 3rd and 7. Shotgun formation. Here's an inside handoff. And you'll maybe get back to the line of scrimmage, but no more than that. So here on 4th down, out comes the field goal team. And And it sails right through the middle of the uprights. Solid kick. So we have our first points on the board. That makes it 3-0. So after coming away with 3 in that drive, the kickoff team is out. Bringing it out, it's Whittington. Tackled at the 13. Not great field position to start the drive. And that powerful Oregon offense retakes the field. This drive is important. Last one ended in an interception. Let's see if they can get it going here. Here's the first play of the drive. They'll set up from the 13. Dropping back, it's Moore. Physical defending. That one falls incomplete. Brings up second down.
Chris, I thought he had his hands on that football. I thought he was going to come down with it. But give the defense all the credit with a big hit to knock that ball loose.
Now it's second down here. After the incompletion on first down, looking to throw it again. What a catch! What a snag by the junior receiver.
Boy, nice completion here by this Oregon offense to be able to show you it's not just about the quarterback's ability to run. Often you associate that with that Oregon quarterback, right? That dual threat guy, a guy that can run it. Do not forget about their ability to throw the football out in Eugene. Think about Darren Thomas, the career that he had. Started for a few years, took his team all the way to the national championship, made some big throws. And Justin Herbert, of course, enough said, we see it every NFL Sunday what he can do. 4-year starter for the Ducks. We're still seeing these Ducks quarterbacks being able to throw the football.
Second down play coming up. And he drops back in the gun. Looking deep downfield with the left. Trying to go very deep there. Good effort. Now it's third down.
Chris, they come up with the incompletion, but I like the idea of stretching the defense. It can do so much to help out with your short to intermediate passing game, even affect the running game by making those safeties aware that you're willing to take a shot downfield.
Drops back, needing a third down completion here. It's another deep shot. That pass is batted away, incomplete.
Well, Chris, obviously they had to go through the air there to try to pick up this third down and long, but when you're so far behind the chains, boy, you really allow this defense to dictate things, and it allows them to put pressure on your quarterback and can affect the timing, as we saw on this play.
Looks like a man is down on the field after the last play, so we'll take a timeout. So here comes the first play of the drive. They'll begin at their own 46. Off the play fake, looking to throw on first down. Makes the grab. It's Miller. Makes the first down, but pays a price. Big hit there at the end. So Alabama will take the lead into the quarter break here. We've reached the end of the third. Time is running out to cut into this lead. Let's check out the game stats before we go on. We're set now for the fourth quarter. Who is going to make the crucial plays to take home this W? Back at it to start the quarter. Offense getting set to run a first down play. Chewing clock with the running game. And this one goes nowhere. Lucky to get back to the line of scrimmage. Well, the play is just blown up by the big fella in the middle. Showing some quickness for his size.
Yeah, we know about his power, but how about his ability to penetrate there? And that's the quickest way to blow up a run game is that interior penetration. If you're able to break through the middle of that offensive line, then you can create a lot of havoc in the middle.
Let's fly to the wideout. Picked off, a crucial turnover. Follows the pick with a nice return before finally being brought down.
Boy, I got to question the play call right here. Give the defense credit. They get the interception. They put themselves in a spot to maybe tie this game. But what was the offensive coordinator thinking with the lead, taking a chance, and it backfires?
Here comes the first play of the drive now from the 44. Looking downfield. It's Moore. It's incomplete. He was hit as he threw. Good pass rush there on first down.
And that's just a great job by this defense of affecting the rhythm of this offense. These guys are in go mode here in the fourth quarter, trying to come back to win this game, and the defense is meeting the challenge so far.
Grab down the middle. It's Casper. They make the stop, but it's a big play with a 31.
You know, we talked this week with the offensive coordinator about what makes this receiver so special. He kept referring to his route running. Here's an example of that. Great route, enough separation to give the quarterback a nice lane to throw the football.
Fighting off the defender. They've got him, but he picks up 8 yards. Sets up a nice 2nd and 2. Ducks will come to the line to crank up the tempo. They try the middle, but gain nothing on that one. We've reached the 2-minute timeout as this offense tries to stage a dramatic comeback and win the game late. So now it's 3rd and short from the 23. Potential 4-down territory. Let's see what the 3rd down call is. They'll try to move the chains here on the ground. And the Ducks are moving quickly down the field.
How about that, Chris? 3rd down and 2. They get just enough. I thought they might bring the sticks out to measure. It was so close, but they're going to give them the 1st down. That's just trusting your back to get the yards you need for the 1st down.
The Ducks will have 1st and 10 here. Takes the handoff on the counter play, and he will be stuffed for no gain.
Really tough to run a good counter play when the linebackers aren't fooled at all. This time they get down in a hurry into the line of scrimmage to make that play.
Extra blocker. Let's see what they have in mind here. And it's a direct snap. Defense not fooled by the Wildcat look. Just a short gain on the play.
You know, in the era that we live in right now, everybody wants to spread the field around, try to create space, try to create one-on-one matchups, and the defense has countered over the years by trying to play out wide. But here's a great example. The defense has the ability to play wide, but still be solid at the line of scrimmage, not give up big run plays.
The defense will call a timeout before this critical down just to get everybody on the same page. Down 1 possession in the 4th quarter, and the offense is going to try to convert here on 4th down. Looking to throw for the 1st down. Throws it to the right. Makes the catch. Can he get in? Touchdown, Ducks. They jump on top here in the final minute.
Here we go. They take the lead. What an amazing comeback by this team and this offense. Now it comes down to can their defense hold the lead with under a minute to go.
So they'll try to add to the lead now with the PAT. PAT up and good. The lead is 4 here in the final quarter.
That makes the score 40-7. Alabama 3.
So after taking the lead, they'll kick it away here and hope their defense can make a stop on this final drive. And a misfire there on the kickoff as it goes out of bounds.
Free kick out of bounds. Kicking team.
Mistake by the kicker, and the offense will set up now at the 40. Offense getting set for what could be their final drive, down late in the final quarter. Play action here on 1st down. Looking for his big tight end. Oh, what a grab! They bring him down, but that's a solid gain on the play. They'll hurry to the line here with the clock running. 1st down, looking to throw the ball. That's reeled in. It's Miller. And they'll step out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage there. The defense pursuit forced him out.
I'll tell you what, man, this defensive speed is electric. Great job of running to the football. Nowhere to go at all after that throw.
Quarterback looking to pass here on second down. That's caught. It's Cuevas. And the coach quickly calls timeout after the play, trying to hold on to as much time as possible.
Well, we just continue to see this defense make great plays, especially with their tackling. And the awareness to understand we're in the fourth quarter, you're trying to keep this offense in bounds so they keep that clock moving.
Here we go, trailing late in the game here. Serious urgency for this offense right now. Off the play fake, looking to pass it. Moves out of the pocket. Cannot get the throw off. He's taken down. What a huge play at this stage of the game. And the offense takes timeout with 26 seconds remaining.
Alabama.
Time running down. They'll go for it here on fourth down. Crucial play here. They go to the air. The QB throws his third pick of the day. And he busts loose right down the middle. It's a foot race. Touchdown, Oregon. A crucial pick six.
Oh, and that's another touchdown for this offense. They continue to go out there and battle. I want to see what this handshake's going to be like after the game. I don't know how the opposing coach feels about this late score.
Welcome, everyone, to the ultimate game in the college football season. Everything has built to this, the battle for the national championship and college football immortality, a moment that every young football player grows up dreaming about. And these two teams have survived the expanded playoff grind. They have battled through a regular season, multiple playoff victories, all sorts of challenges and adversity, and they've arrived at this moment, the battle for that precious trophy. As we'll see a squad from the SEC, the Alabama Crimson Tide, taking on another team from the SEC, the Texas Longhorns. For EA Sports College Football, I'm Chris Fowler with Kirk Herbstreit. It's time to get this national championship game underway and crown a champion.
Entering settings screen, you have 29 options. Menu narration option is set to off is selected.
The kickoff team is out determine the national championship. And here's the return from inside the 5. And he stopped at the 20, trying to make something happen, but that's good coverage there. So Texas's offense making their way on the field to open this game. They will go up against a secondary, Kirk, that talks about the no-fly zone. These guys are confident in their ability to just lock down wide receivers and take away the opponent's passing game.
Seems like every year in college football, there's secondaries around the country that want to brag that they have the best group of defensive backs. I think this defense and this secondary specifically has a very strong case with what they have to work with. The question I have is, how will the offense consistently move the ball against this group today? What a nice call here to start this national championship game off with a physical run. I think this offensive line has been a strength all year long, and here they get this game started the right way.
Quarterback making adjustments now to what the defense is showing. Looking to pass. It's Manning. He escapes the pocket. He escapes the pocket, but not the rush. It'll be a short loss.
You know, a lot of times when you see a sack like this, you got to give a lot of credit to the coverage downfield. I don't think the quarterback really felt good about anybody being open, so he held the ball just a little bit too long and allows the defense to come up with the first sack of the game.
That O-line has to regroup now. It's 2nd and 12. And they'll run it out of the shotgun. Oh, he fought hard there, broke a tackle, but brought down short of the sticks.
Love this early in the game by this defense, taking control of the line of scrimmage, not giving this back anywhere to go, and they keep him short of the first down.
Drops back, looking to throw for it on 3rd down. The tight end has got it. Heads out of bounds after a solid gain. The tackle made, but the sophomore quarterback showing us the arm strength.
Well, I've always said I think this quarterback all year long has been able to be as consistent as any quarterback in the country. And when you get to 3rd down, you've got to trust that he's going to make the right decision and throw an accurate ball to give you a chance at a first down. There's another example of it right there.
Snags the quick throw. To get him down quickly, not much of a gain on that completion.
Quarterback looks downfield to make this throw. He wants to be able to get the ball to be able to pick up enough yards for a first down. But instead, he gets the ball at least underneath to the drag route and gets some positive yards.
2nd down, we're going to throw it. Looking to scramble. He's going to take off here. And he'll head out of bounds after a short gain on that run.
Good awareness here by this defense, keeping their eyes on the quarterback, knowing that he's a potential threat. That time, before he can get out, they keep him to a short gain.
Big moment on the opening drive. They face 3rd down. Quarterback adjusting now to the defense. And the motion by the back now forces the defense to adjust. Dropping back, it's Manning. And it's intercepted. He stepped in front of that bullet. Breaks into the open. And he's wrapped up after a solid return.
Well, that is a tough way to start this game for this offense, throwing an interception on their first drive. Big thing now is you go to the sideline, talk to the offensive coordinator, make a couple adjustments, and come back and play with confidence next time you get the ball.
Single back takes the handoff. Gets some space around the 30. They finally stop him. Big play. Moves the ball to the 22.
Well, I know people want to talk about the spread, and Alabama's offense has changed over the years, but at the end of the day, with this coaching staff, it still comes down to the line of scrimmage and the ability to pound the rock. Think about the backs they've had in recent years. Mark Ingram and Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs most recently. This is an offense that still wants to control things up front and beat you down.
Alabama has now moved into the red zone. Defense looking to dial up some pressure here. Here comes a jet sweep. That's a nice tackle there by the senior.
Boy, Chris, you talking about an alert defense? Sometimes that jet motion, it can create some confusion, get guys out of place. But not this time. Great play recognition by the defense on this play.
3rd down after that running play. Takes the toss and heads left. He's brought down, but good for a first and goal at the 4.
Wow, you love to see this. First drive of the game, and the offense goes to the ground game to come up with that critical first down here on 3rd down. Impressive, and now they got a real shot here inside the 10-yard line.
He's swarmed by the defense. So, Kirk, we reached the end of one. So far, a defensive stalemate here in the early stats illustrating the story. Getting set here now for the second period. Both offenses looking for some efficiency, for a spark after that opening quarter. They've had the break to talk about it. Now we begin the quarter with the offense set up 2nd and goal. And the wideout goes in motion. A pop pass on the jet sweep. Touchdown, Crimson Tide. They draw first blood in this national title game.
That's taking advantage of a matchup there, Chris, by the quarterback finding his receiver. He puts the ball up in the air where he can make a play on it, and they come up with that touchdown.
PAT makes it 7-0. So after putting up a touchdown, the kickoff team is out there to boot it away. And he'll lead the kickoff right there. We'll start at the 25. Okay, the Texas offense comes back out on the field. They had it going on the last drive, but it ended abruptly with the interception. Let's see what they can do here. Ball handed off. As the first down is still going. They bring him down, but the drive has now reached the 35. It's a strong run. Keeps the drive going. First down now. Looking to pass. It's Manning. Going to try to use his legs here. Breaking free at midfield. Scoots out of bounds after a nice pickup on that running play.
This is why I love the quarterbacks that can make things happen. Here you have an opportunity to try to create. Nothing's there. Play breaks down. Instead of just throwing it away, he sits back, sees nothing downfield, decides to be able to pick up the first down by himself. Impressive run to pick up the first and keep this drive moving.
Looking to throw it on first down. Receiver makes the grab. Defense surrounds it. Just a short gain on that completion.
But when you sit back and play zone defense like this, what you allow is your defense to have eyes on the football. Here, they give up the catch, but you can see how they rally to the football. There's just nowhere to go for this slot receiver.
Looking to pass here on second down. The pocket breaking down. And they chase him down outside the pocket for a sack.
Well, another great play by an Alabama defensive lineman. And you just think about it over the years, probably the last 30 years, going all the way back to John Copeland on that 1992 Alabama defense. Most recently, guys like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Quentin Williams. You can always count on Bama having great defensive linemen and difference makers.
Now in third and very long, looking to throw. He's running out of time here. And he'll just throw it away now. Couldn't make anything happen, and that's now going to bring up fourth down.
Chris, I don't know if it's the hype of the national championship, the timing between the quarterback and his receivers, but they have not been able to get anything going at all here in the first half. And the problem is they're already down in this game. They've got to put the ball through the air and start hitting some passes, or there's no chance they come back and have a chance to win.
Here comes the Crimson Tide offense onto the field. So the first play of the drive coming up here, under 3 minutes to play before half. They punch it into the end zone the last time. Let's see if this defense has made some adjustments to stop them this time. The gain is 4, so it's 2nd and 6.
Hey, listen, you don't always have to have big plays to be successful. It's a nice, solid gain here. Keeps you on schedule, and you get ready for that next play.
We reach the 2-minute timeout. We'll see if the offense here can build on this lead before the break. Second down play coming up for this offense. And they'll use the ground game here. He's past the marker and still going. Tackled at the 32. That's enough for a first down.
Oh, I love to see that jet sweep here to pick up that first down. Great timing to get that defense really on their heels. And they keep this drive moving, too, so maybe we'll see that one again soon.
Well, it looked like they tried to get the ball to the edge, Kurt, but that play was just shut down before it could get going.
Yeah, that design is a sweep to get way out to the outside, but the defense flashes their speed there. Great instincts and speed to be able to bring that down for a nice loss.
Offense now behind the 6 on second down. They need 12 after that first down loss. Handoff here from the shotgun. Well, they test the middle there, but get nothing.
That was an excellent effort by this defense, just staying in their run fits, holding their own at the line of scrimmage, and then making a tackle. Offense just couldn't get enough of a push to get any yards at all.
To the air, it's Simpson. On the move now. It's a deep shot right down the middle. And the pass is dropped. Would have been a big gain, but he couldn't hold on.
And I was hoping he'd be able to hold on to that football. That would have been a big play there on third down. Now, big decision coming up here on fourth.
The drive stalled, so he'll have to punt it away. It's a low punt, won't travel very far. He brought down, but a penalty marker is on the field. Let's see what this is about.
Personal foul. Roughing the kicker.
Pretty easy call for the head coach. He will accept that penalty, of course. Offense gets a second chance after the roughing the punter penalty. Thrown quickly, caught in the right flat. Defense reacts quickly, a very short gain on the play.
Boy, wide receiver screen can be hit or miss. Either receiver finds a nice crease and picks up big yards, or the defense completely negates that. The team speed from the defense here wins that play.
The offense will take their first time out of the half to talk strategy here.
And it's a nice job by this defense. They saw option, actually forced the quarterback to pull the ball on the read, and then they corral him for a loss. You could tell they worked hard on that in practice.
Looking to throw it on third and very long. He'll throw it now. Makes the grab. It's Miller. Oh, and he heads out of bounds after a really nice gain there. Tackle is made, but the junior quarterback shows off his arm strength that time.
This offense is clicking, and clearly everything seems to be working. The coordinator is calling good plays. The quarterback and the rest of his receivers and running backs are executing. And frankly, this defense is showing almost no resistance.
Looking to throw. It's Simpson. It's a quick grab. And he goes down after a solid game on the play. That's enough for a fresh set of downs for this offense. So a timeout is called to talk strategy. Maybe time for one or two more plays before halftime. He missed it. Off target that time. And after the miss, it's still a 7-point lead. And that will do it for the first half here. Kevin Connors now has our halftime update.
Chris, the battle for the most coveted trophy in all of college football has been fierce. And a lot of coaches will say limiting the big plays and maybe hitting on a few yourself is key. But I'm more of a move the chains guy. Give me efficiency every day of the week and twice on Saturday. The offensive unit that subscribes to the less is more philosophy might be the one that leaves here today with a big fat W. And with that, let's send it back to Chris and Kirk. Fellas, hard to believe we're only one half away from crowning a national champion.
He thought about returning it, but instead takes a knee. It'll be a touchback at the start of the 25. Here comes the Alabama offense onto the field. And the first play of the drive now from the 25. First play of the second half to keep it on the ground. And he breaks the tackle on the way to a solid gain there.
Setting the tone early with good runs like this can really wear defense down and keep the defense guessing. That's why some of the best coaches of all time have primarily done it with great run games.
Second down after that run on the previous play. To throw, it's Simpson. The receiver makes the catch. Good enough for a fresh set of downs. They'll spot the ball at the 40. Alabama comes up to the line quickly.
Well, we've seen them do this in the past. A good throw, get the first, and here comes the tempo.
He keeps it QB draw. The junior able to bring him down quickly.
Well, anytime you use your quarterback as a runner, the goal is obviously to hit some big plays. You got to be careful of letting your quarterback take too many big hits. Not only can he get tired, he can also start to fumble the football.
They look to throw it here on second down. Taking a deep shot here to the right. Downfield shot falls incomplete. Couldn't quite connect there.
Well, they come close to hitting a big one here to start this second half of the national championship. And even though they missed that, I think it gives you an idea they're going to open up this playbook. You might as well leave it all on the table when you're playing for all the marbles.
Keeps it on the draw. And they'll stop him just short of the marker. Good effort, but the defense holds. Now it's fourth down. The ball near midfield. No punting team. The offense is going for it. Here we go. Fourth down. They'll try to run for it. The first down pickup tackled at the 45.
Well, these are the kind of situations you practice every week. You got to be able to get a yard. And the offensive line was able to give them just enough push to convert here on the ground. Clearly, they've done this drill before countless times, and it shows.
Now they're running on the toss. They test the middle of the defense, but get nothing. Well, they run it right into a blitz. And that linebacker was coming downhill curve.
Man, what a time to call that blitz here by the defensive coordinator. And you're right, he shoots right through that A-gap. Really, the back had nowhere to go. By the time he got the ball in his hands, the linebacker's right in his face.
Moves out of the pocket. Looking for a receiver deep middle. The outfield shot is incomplete. Brings up third down.
Well, that's going to go down as an incompletion, obviously. But I like that the quarterback showed his ability to escape. Broke loose from the pocket and put the ball on a string, but just wasn't able to come up with that completion.
Eighth play of the drive coming up, but a long way to go on third down. Scanning the field, it's Simpson. He escapes the pocket. Using his legs here. He'll avoid the tackle there with a slide.
Chris, watch him work through his progressions here. Finds the first and the second option aren't there. By the third option, he's got to pull it down and try to pick up some positive yards, of which he did, and then he slides down to avoid the big hit.
Here's the toss play. Runner heads outside. And he's brought down short of the line to gain on what should be the last play of this third quarter. So Alabama will take the lead into the quarter break here. We've reached the end of the third quarter in this national championship battle that has lived up to the hype. For the final period, let's check out the game stats. And here we go. It all comes down to this. Everything to play for. One quarter to decide who will win the national championship. Here we go, first play of the quarter. Offense setting up for a second down play. grinding away on the ground. Couldn't quite get in. Tackled down at the 2-yard line. Excellent run.
You know, in college football anymore, Chris, you get caught up in the big plays through the passing game. But we're seeing what this back can do when he has room to run. Great acceleration, great speed. I know he gets tackled here at the 2-yard line. If I'm the offensive coordinator, give that young man the football again. Let him get his touchdown.
He's swarmed by the defense.
Chris, this is situational football. This is really where the great coaches separate themselves, because in these kind of situations, this is where you want to be able to score and kill the clock. Some teams do it better than others, and that's primarily coaching and execution and preparation. It'll be interesting to see how this offense
And he's in for the score. Touchdown, tied.
As a defensive coordinator, you've got to be careful being so worried about this pass game and this quarterback that you're a little bit soft up front and it costs you. It's exactly what happened here as they scored this touchdown.
Point after, knocked right through. Got momentum after scoring that touchdown. Now the kickoff team out there to kick it away. And it comes out of the 25. No return attempted there. The Longhorns offense takes the field. National championship game comes down to this. They've got to get points right now. Serious urgency. And the first play of the drive now from the 25. Running back has it on the screen now.
I love what the defense is doing here. Sitting back, giving up some plays underneath, tackling these guys inbounds, and just keep that clock rolling.
Back to pass. It's Manning. Caught quickly. Ball carrier heads out of bounds, but the pickup is good enough to move the chains. First down. This line getting set up. It's a first down play. Receivers now getting some new assignments before the snap. And the back now goes in motion. First down. Looking to throw the football. And he finds the running back in the flat. And he's shoved out of bounds with the defense short of the first down marker.
At this point in the game, Chris, these guys have got to get the ball thrown downfield. You're down by a couple possessions. The clock is becoming your enemy. You need vertical shots downfield. These short gains are not going to help you.
Quarterback looking to throw it on second down. And a short pitch and catch to the tight end. And he runs out of bounds. That's a big gainer there. We've reached the 2-minute timeout. This offense facing some serious urgency, trying to come up with a miracle late here. The Longhorns with 1st and 10 here. Looking to throw yet again. On the move now. He's looking to scramble.
Chris, I love the patience here by the quarterback. He's waiting for something to happen downfield, but it's not there. Then you see the athletic ability to be able to pick up some good yards.
Less than a yard to go as they come to the line on second down. And the quarterback drops back, looking for an open man. Finds his man. And he's brought down, but not before he gets first down yardage.
Wow, they get positive yards here, but you have a sense that they wanted a little bit more with that pitch and catch.
And here comes play number 6 on this drive. The pre-snap motion from the offense. He fires this throw and is intercepted. He goes down quickly, but that's a takeaway for this defense. Important play.
Just a great job of anticipating that and coming up with a big interception by this defense. Because they have this lead, they've really forced this offense to become one-dimensional. They're expecting the ball to be into the air. The defensive backs have their eyes on the ball, and they're able to capitalize with a big pick here in the national title.
They lose 3 in that play, so now it's second down and 13. Important play coming up. Play action fake, looking to throw, looking to scramble. It's going to be incomplete, trying to make something happen on the run, but nobody open.
Well, they don't make the completion here. The timing seemed to be off between a quarterback and receiver. But, man, this defensive coordinator, he may want to consider getting more pressure on this quarterback by changing some things up. He's got a lot of time back there to throw the ball. And eventually, it's going to cost him.
He stopped short of the marker, so it's 4th down now.
Well, how fitting for him to get another nice carry here, because it's been that kind of game in the national title. We knew coming in that he was going to be showcased. I didn't think he would have this kind of performance on this big of a stage, but he has, and a big reason why they're going to win this national title.
That's it. It's official. We have our national champions. Well, this was a kind of a grinding affair. You give the game ball to the defense here. They did their job at the end in a low-scoring one.
There's no doubt about that, Chris. Their own offense didn't have to do a whole lot today because the way their own defense played led them to a victory.
And that's going to wrap it up. For Kirk Street, I'm Chris Fowler. This has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.